Buenas tardes, yo soy Roger, soy miembro del grupo vocal de cantos armónicos MuOM y hoy voy a entrevistar a un músico, también escritor, muy interesado en los procesos creativos y la improvisación. Él se llama Nachmanovitch y es autor de un libro que se ha hecho muy conocido en los ámbitos de la creación, la improvisación musical, que se llama Freeplay. Y la verdad es que va a ser un placer entrevistarlo. Así que avisar que la entrevista va a ser en inglés y que en los próximos días o semanas vamos a intentar de traducirla para poner subtítulos en castellano. Pues nada más, solo decir que esto es la tercera entrevista de una serie de entrevistas que estamos haciendo desde MuOM a diferentes personalidades del mundo de la música, ya que en estos tiempos de confinamiento pues hemos aprovechado para expandir un poco el conocimiento de nuestra área, de la música, de la creatividad y del vínculo entre música, arte, creación, espiritualidad y sanación. Espero que la disfrutéis.
Okay.
Hi.
There we go. Nice to see you again.
You too. You too.
Yeah,
We succeeded.
we have succeeded, yes. So everybody's in lockdown there as we are here.
Yes, yes. I don't know in which precise stage you are now here in Virginia is,
In Virginia, yes.
but here we have started to move a little bit. We are allowed to move in the municipality, but yeah, gradually we are starting to move more.
Right. And you're in Barcelona?
I'm not in the city itself, but I'm close to it. I'm in another village, which is like
Right,
40 minutes from Barcelona.
right. Sounds beautiful.
Yes, actually, it's very nice here now. It's
Yeah,
spring and are surrounded by forests, so
yes.
I feel quite in privilege now.
Yes, me too.
Uh
Me
huh.
too. Yeah. I mean, it's very different from my wife because she's a doctor. And so she's deeply involved in all of the crisis in the hospital where she is.
Right.
For me, being a musician and living out in the country, and also being my age, it's not hard for me at all to remain isolated. In fact, I'm learning how to be an introvert.
Yeah, it feels a bit I don't know, awkward also for me because actually as I'm experiencing this period in a very different context as many other people. I feel a bit sorry to say that I'm experiencing quite I'm quite happy to have the opportunity to be more with my own activities and
Yeah.
yeah, have more time. So but I understand it's a period of a lot of movement and difficult times for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. It is. And those of us who are privileged to have a place to be and have enough food and a space to work in and so forth. I mean, it is a great period to sit there and just do your own work, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
right. It's funny because I don't know, I read somewhere that things like meditation apps have grown a lot. People that download apps for meditation or to
Right.
work on themselves, the well-being, all these kind of things.
Right. Of course, the easiest way to work on meditation is not with an app, but just with your breath. You know, all you have to do is sit here. You know, it's really quite easy, and it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, that's funny. But maybe we are so used to work and live through these devices that now the things that are supposed to be less in contact with those devices are also inside the device, like meditation.
Yes, of course. And here we are, the two of us together in our devices between Spain and Virginia. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But actually, I mean, I don't know what questions you had, but the idea of being able to meditate or create art without a device and without an app, or without any support of any kind whatsoever, is really the core of what we're talking about, really, in human creativity. And to simply be able to be there, to breathe, to speak, to make a sound, to make a series of sounds, to draw, to write. These are all very, very simple things. And all the greatest accomplishments of human beings are very, very simple. And so, in a sense, what we're here to do today is to celebrate the simple.
That's a very nice way to put it. Sometimes it feels a little bit like a contradiction, because somehow to be simple can be very difficult for some people or for some kind of context.
Yeah.
And why do you think this happens, or which is the key to find this simplicity?
Yeah. Well, have you read my new book, The Art of Is, yet?
Parts of it.
Yes. So there's one part of The Art of Is where I mention a study. It was actually done here at the University of Virginia, where people who were in this experiment, and it was particularly men more so than women, were actually preferred receiving an electric shock to remaining alone by themselves in a room for a period of time. So the idea of sitting still and being with yourself is really painful to a lot of people, because we're constantly used to being bombarded by stimulation, by other people, by whatever is around us all the time. And of course, the interesting thing is that, I mean, the root of creativity, if we're interested in being musicians or artists or creative people of any kind, is that the sources of our creativity are around us all the time, in the forms of everything that we look at in nature, everything we're surrounded by in society with other people. And there's really nothing extra that we need. And it's very hard for us to recognize that sometimes, because to recognize it, we actually have to sit back and be quiet and pay attention. You know, there's an old Zen story about two people are talking, and one of them is a Zen master and one is a very accomplished academic scholar. And the scholar keeps talking about his knowledge, and the Zen master said, "Would you like some tea?" And the guy says, sure. So the master pours tea into his cup, and he pours it and pours it and pours it, and now the cup is overflowing onto the ground. And the guy says, wait a minute. and the Zen master says that, well, if you have so much in your cup, how can anyone put anything in it?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
and that's really, you know, to be able to. I mean, I'm looking at you through my computer, but past my computer is a forest and trees, and for me to just be able to sit back and look at a bird that is sitting on a branch and talking, I need to be able to be quiet enough to hear the bird talking. My senses need to be quiet enough so that I can see what is in front of me. So I mean, we're talking about music today, and, you know, I pick up a musical instrument and play it. And it seems like it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work to play a musical instrument. But actually, in addition, and you do have to practice and you do have to work and you have to reject a lot, and as you keep working on it. But it also takes a lot of nothing to play a musical instrument.
What do you mean by nothing?
It takes a lot of nothing because you actually have to have silence in order to play. You have to have silence in order to hear. And there's another, I guess we're talking about Zen today. There's another Zen statement from MuOM, who said that not even a good thing is as good as nothing. You know, and there it is, you know, to hear the bird, to hear you and me, you know, for you and me to talk to each other and have a conversation. We each get to be quiet enough and spend enough of our conversation doing nothing so that we can hear the other person and take in what the other person is saying. So I notice as I'm talking about this that I am talking slower and slower because I'm trying to practice what I'm talking about. And the more nothing, the more silence there is in your music, the more empty space. Visual artists like to talk about negative space, the empty space that is around an object that makes the object interesting. And there's to give our third Buddhist reference of the day, there is the great bodhisattva of compassion, who's called Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin in Chinese. And that name means, that's the bodhisattva of compassion, who's infinitely aware of the suffering of the world. And the name actually means who hears the cries of the world. And so here we are in this very, very difficult time of the pandemic. And it's not just the pandemic, but it's also many people's frightened or crazy reactions to the pandemic. You know, it's a very, very difficult time. And for us to hear the cries of the world, for us to hear what is happening out there, so that we can act appropriately, sense appropriately, not try to restart our society in the wrong direction, but maybe restart it in a better direction. We have to be silent. We have to be silent enough to hear what is going on.
Do you think there's a way to make art, make music that can help the listener to enter this space of calmness, inner centering?
Yes.
And this is related to the music in itself, to the form of the music, but also to the musician or the person that is actually making the music and intentionally putting this quality in the music.
Yes. Yes. It's the music, it's the attitude of the musician. It's the attitude of the people who are listening. It's the attitude of the person who's putting a microphone in front of the musician, and with what care is that microphone placed. I mean, people are, there's many forms of, whether it be music, art, technology, science, business, all kinds of forms of expression, where people, they may not be consciously thinking about improving the state of the world when they're doing what they do. But the fact is that if you have a microphone and you place it in a certain spot in the room, in a certain relation to the person who's playing, in a certain relation to the walls of the room, you know, you're paying attention. It's the same thing we've been talking about in several different contexts already. You're paying attention, you're taking care. Taking care.
So it looks like in the creative process, being it with music or through other arts, it's not just the intention towards the form of the music, but also another way of intentions that go beyond the music in itself, that affect the ambience, affect the quality of the moment that you are creating.
You said it.
You
said it.
Actually, I can relate to that a lot, because with our project with the MuOM, which is this vocal group that we are experimenting also in the intentional music, maybe we have called it in this way, in which we focus our attention to a certain thing. We did a piece related to the Amazonas, when there was all these fires going on, and we let that inspiration to guide an improvisation, and actually was very powerful. The quality of the environment that was created was very intense and very powerful. So which potentials do you think this kind of attitude towards music can have? And also I'm referring to the healing potentials, well-being potentials.
Yeah, I really liked the word that you used, intentional music. Intentional, whatever it is. I've been talking to some people lately who are, there's a movement of mostly theater improvisers who talk about applied improvisation, and what they're trying to do, I think, is really wonderful. But the word bothers me, applied. Okay, because it's like, okay, I have this artistic activity, but it's not good enough in and of itself. It has to be applied to something important, you know.
Right.
And you realize how strange that word is if you transpose it to other things, like what is applied kissing? You know, there's
Right.
something a little bit, and also things like applied music. Well, music has been applied as a form of psychological warfare. It's been used by torturers in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. It's used as a mild form of torture by restaurants, which play loud, jangly music that will, I call it ITBM, International Thumpy Bar Music. You can find it in every country, and it makes people very nervous and jittery. And in that state of jitteriness, they talk faster, they order more drinks, they eat faster, and they leave faster so that they turn over the tables in the restaurant more. And so that's applied music. Now, of course, music can also be applied in with very great purposes. Like there are many great music therapists who are interested in the healing power of music, and you know, but the whole notion of that you're doing something in order to be doing something else is a problem to me. But when you talk about intentional music, intentional improvisation, that's a really interesting word, because I'm not trying to apply it to something. I'm not trying to say that this is good for something there which is more important. I'm saying that I'm doing this with a certain intention. Okay, with some kind of, and hopefully with some kind of altruistic intention, some kind of intention to reach a little bit of clarity and to reach people in a way that helps them. But you can't really be so specific, you know, clearly what you do, you know, if you're doing a project that is trying to be guided by the horrible things that are happening in the Amazon forest, very likely the music that you play is not going to save any of the forest. It's very likely not to have an effect on Bolsonaro or the other people who are trying to take that forest away for profit. But if your music carries an intention, carries a certain point of view, then it will help people be more conscious. It will help people be more aware of the context of what they are doing. And that's really worthwhile.
Do you think this kind of approach, now we can call it intentional music, that has been created a bit here also, do you think it has a future? Do you have it has a kind of which values can it have, or which ways of developing these ideas in order to be applied. Maybe this word doesn't fit so much, but in different contexts, like in the health or in the education or whatever. Is there space for this kind of attitude towards music or intention?
Yes, there is, of course.
Mm.
Of course. And the clearer your intention is, and also going back to silence and saying nothing and doing nothing, the more silent you are and the more willing you are to also sit back and pay attention to what's going on around you, the clearer will be your perception of the other person that you're interacting with. And the clearer will be the communication when you do communicate. So yes, there's a huge, the potential for growth is extraordinary. The effect of, there's another place in my book, The Art of Is, where I talk about Herbert Zipper, Herbert Zipper was a conductor and composer born in 1904 in Vienna. And he was perhaps on the way to become a major symphony conductor or something like that. And but then the Anschluss came, and he was thrown into Dachau. And his first or second day, they were all slave laborers there, digging ditches and moving rocks around. And he started reciting some poetry by Goethe. And he discovered that many of the men who were his fellow slaves there, they were not necessarily literate or knew anything about poetry, but somehow the poetry did something. And the men stood up straighter and breathed deeper, and there was a positive reaction in their connection to life, such as it was. And Herbert started organizing clandestine concerts behind the latrines in the concentration camp. And he found other fellow musicians, and he composed songs for them, and they played on junk instruments and sang, and it was very clandestine. But some of these songs jumped from one camp to another and had an effect on people. And that was remarkable.
And talking about the power of the music that can have an effect on people, it also makes me reminds me of the power of what we were talking at the beginning, the simplicity, the simple music, because it's something that also I feel, and we feel also in the project we are, that there's a kind of value on the simplicity music, on the simple music, on the music that is made with very few elements, and the quality of tiny nuances, and very kind of this is music that is not that big in complexity or with so many layers, no? And I'd like to just to ask you what is your feeling about this kind of music, or the power.
My connection just dropped for a moment.
Oh, right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah, our connection just dropped for a moment. It
Right.
says your internet connection is unstable.
Oh, unstable times, unstable connection.
Unstable, yes. Are we okay now? So yeah, I mean, that's very, what you're talking about is very, very interesting because to me, simple is really interesting. And I mean, kind of well, in the years before this pandemic, I was traveling around the world teaching improvisation workshops. And that's how you and I met many years ago in
Right.
Germany.
Mm,
And, you know, if you get a group of people together, some of them might be really skilled musicians. Some of them might not be. Some of them may have other skills in other fields. And so there'll be this huge variety of capacities. But everyone has been a baby. That's the thing that we all share. So it's so wonderful to just begin with baby talk, with very, very simple sounds.
mm,
And what's interesting is, first of all, that the very, very simple sounds evolve into really sophisticated, interesting improvisations. But what's also interesting is when they remain very simple, you know, and people discover the ease of communicating.
mm,
I mean, just as we're able to communicate with animals, we're able to communicate with each other on this very basic level. And so if you can play your musical instrument very rapidly and do all kinds of technically interesting things on it, that's great. But the source of it all is baby talk.
mm. Baby talk as the kind of fundamentals of human communication, in a way.
Yes, yes, because
Mm,
that is where all human communication does come from.
mm,
And when you pay attention to babies, they utter the phonemes of every single language in the world.
mm,
And gradually, because they're around the speakers of English or Spanish or Catalan or Chinese or whatever, that they gradually narrow down the repertoire of sounds
mm,
until they just make the sounds of their particular language. But we would begin with the sounds of every language.
mm,
So it's this vast potential.
mm. And I would also like to uh, kind of go to my memories of when I was in that workshop, that when we met in
Yeah,
2015. Uh, just to talk to the audience that are listening, that we were Stefan was conducting a workshop on improvisation, and it was kind of, it was, I felt like it was a little bit like magical in a way, because all of our group was in a circle, and then completely in silence you were kind of inviting two or three people to enter the circle, and you didn't say anything at all, but they would start to improvise with sounds, with movement. And I could remember that it was, the atmosphere was of such joy in a way. I mean, it was so fun. And I don't know, it triggered a kind of a feeling inside of something different in quality, that what we are uh, used to experience when we communicate with other people. I don't know if you could kind of talk about this kind of experience of which is the, this special thing, this unique thing of this kind of communication or improvisation.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm really, of course, as a musician, I'm really interested in nonverbal communication. But even as a writer of language and as a reader of language, I'm interested in nonverbal communication too, you know, like what happens in the cracks between the words is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to, when I was younger, I used to teach workshops by, you know, going in and I would give some suggestions and instructions and talk about stuff. And of course, here we are, we're talking in these little boxes on the internet. So of course we have no choice but to talk. But as I got older, I discovered that it was really possible to teach without talking or to teach with very little talking because we already have our art within us. And really all we need is permission to take the cork off of the bottle, as it were, you know, and release it. And so as I got older, I started to learn how to say less and just wait. And then two people come forward and they do something really magical. It's really, really interesting. It's a really, really interesting process. And I was kind of programmed to think this way long, long ago. When in my early 20s, my great teacher, friend, mentor, Gregory Bateson, who was an anthropologist and philosopher, I was his teaching assistant at the university in California and UC Santa Cruz. And so one day, you know, there he was 70 something. He was like my age now, and I was 21 or something. And I was sitting there at the table with the students, and I started talking about some wonderful whatever it was, and showing off my knowledge. And when we got out of the room afterwards, Gregory pointed at me and he said, "You monkey." I had a nice juicy silence cooking in there and you had to stick your feet in and muck it up. And you know, he had this wonderful way, even though he was, of course, brilliantly intellectual in so many ways, he could still just sit back in the midst of people having an uncomfortable idea and wait for something to happen rather than feel that he had to make something happen.
It's very interesting because I think also this lead connects also to the part of I don't know how we could call it, self-training or self-growth or mindfulness or being in present, no, all these words that are more and more common nowadays. And I relate very much to, I think one of the aspects that for me are more attractive of improvisation is that it's a way to make me step rapidly to the present moment, so to say.
Yeah. Now, what was really interesting when you said that, because of a slight distortion on the, are we still connected? Or Are we connected now? Your internet connection is unstable.
Yeah.
Your internet connection is unstable. So you said that in the process of improvisation made me step into the present moment, which is very true. But also, when the internet connection became a little unstable, I heard the first thing I heard you say was make mistakes. You said make me step, but I heard make mistakes. And that was really interesting because mistakes are such an important part of this. You know, we're taught to fear and shun mistakes, you know, and once again, of course, playing an instrument, you know, there's so many problems. The idea of mistakes is a psychological quagmire. But in improvisation, making mistakes is the golden road. You know, Sigmund Freud said that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. But to me, as a musician, mistakes are the royal road to the unconscious. So you do something that you didn't intend, and the mistake makes me step into the present. And you become really aware. There's that moment, and I'm not just talking about mistakes in music, but mistakes in life. And we all have those moments all the time when you realize that you just said the wrong thing, or you just failed to say something that you should have said. And you have that queasy, uncomfortable moment of knowing that you made a mistake and trying to find a way back from that mistake. That is, if you're a person with ethics. But, you know, the interesting thing is that when you make a mistake and you find your way back from the mistake, that's really interesting because that's where the art comes from, is finding your way, is getting lost and finding your way back. Because when you get lost and find your way back, you discover all kinds of new stuff. And that's where you and I are different from that's where you and I are different from the machine. Okay, so now we're having this interaction by Zoom, and the circuitry of the internet and the traffic of millions of other people connecting on the internet is causing our connection to be glitchy. But the circuitry doesn't experience a desire to creatively find its way back from a mistake. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just would like to make a link between this idea of the mistake and the aspect of facing uncertainty. And actually, probably just the metaphor of uncertainty is very suitable, I think, on these periods that we are experiencing now. So in a way,
Yes.
also would be kind of a creative challenge in a way to be able to face these times, you know.
Yes. Yes, it's a huge challenge. And I mean, clearly, there's nothing we can do at this moment but improvise, but discover the ways that we can function and connect with each other in a way that works now, because there's really no practice for this. No one has had a chance to practice for this in the modern world. And so here we are. So those that are capable of improvising and connecting and working together in this strange world, that's our job, you know.
So it's interesting because also for us as in our projects, these ideas of making interviews with people from the other side of the world, it has come because of this period also. So in a way there are creative things that are appearing also.
Yeah. Yeah, there are, for sure. And there's been a lot of barriers created by this pandemic, but a lot of barriers have been torn down also. And it's actually wonderful how free we are to communicate with each other, at least as long as we have the electronic communications working, you know.
Right.
And also when we aren't communicating with each other, the power of solitude is extraordinary, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been interesting because for me, I was thinking of making an introduction, introduct you and present you to the audience, but somehow it has been flowing so smooth that I kind of felt that it was not necessary. But anyway, I would like to say to the audience that are listening to us that I met you there as we have said in Germany in that workshop, and I became very attracted to the work you are doing as a teacher, also as a writer, and as a musician. No? And I really get much inspiration from your book, your first book, the Freeplay, and also your second book that you have released last year, I guess, the Art of It. And I really recommend it. These are two, especially Freeplay, because I knew it for a long time. Is a book that I keep recommending to people, artists, but also non-artists, because I think it really awakens the idea that everyone is in this life as a creative being, and everyone has this status of being able to create and to fill this space, empty space that is our life in a way, no? And I'm really I appreciate, and I'm very grateful that I could be in touch with you, and also now that I'm being able to talk to you again. No?
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's really great.
So, do you feel that you would like to add anything else? You have to say something, or I don't know, as a way to conclude this interview, this space.
Sure. Why don't we say this?
Right. Oh, thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I've been observing your violin. I don't know if you call it violin, but it's a very
Yes.
special instrument.
Yes.
Have you
Yes,
built it yourself, or
no, this was built by a instrument maker in England named David Bruce Johnson.
mm,
And it's a 6-string violectra, so it goes from the violin down into the range of the cello.
wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the first time I'm listening to this instrument. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And very artistically made.
Mm. I guess people that wants to listen more of this instrument and your music, they can look at your channel in YouTube. I guess you have
That's
their
right. Yeah.
music, no?
Yes.
So maybe we can add the link in the interview also.
Sounds great. Yes.
Yeah, and also maybe I think people will be interested also to know how they can maybe read your book, or maybe we can also put a link to that. Or
Yes, we certainly can do that. I can give you that. Yeah.
great,
That would be great. That would be great. Well,
fantastic.
it was wonderful having this dialogue with you. It's been really great to reconnect and really sweet in this time to be, to allow ourselves to be preoccupied with creativity, with silence, with connecting with other people on this very deep level. It's really great.
Thank you so much. It's been a really nice gift and present to be here with you. So all the best,
Thank
Stephen,
you.
and
All the best.
hopefully we can connect again in the future.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Great. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Muy bien, pues espero que hayáis disfrutado, que os haya gustado esta entrevista tan enriquecedora. Yo la verdad es que lo he disfrutado mucho. Y solamente deciros que la semana que viene haremos la cuarta entrevista a Llorenç Castelló, que es el director de la Escolania de Montserrat. Así que seguimos muy animados y animadas por poder estar haciendo este pequeño proyecto. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos y seguimos.